not because you're weak.
Chat, I don't know what just happened, but we back. Yeah, chat. I don't know what just happened, man. We back though, so whatever. It just flipped off. That's it. Yeah, chat. I don't know what happened. It flipped off, but we're back on this side. So right now we're talking about what happens, um, and when it drops the other live, you just gonna have to connect this one. So right now we're talking about what happens. What happens when you take that little couple days off, man? How does that affect you? Go ahead, Brittany. Pick up where you left off.
Yeah, let's tighten and ground that so it lands clean and empowering, not heavy or fear-based. What you're pointing to here is momentum interruption, not rest in a healthy sense. And that distinction matters. Here's the clean breakdown you can give the chat. What's happening during the holidays for a lot of people isn't recovery. It's a forced pause in conscious creation. When you're building something, mentally, financially, spiritually, physically, you're in a rhythm. Your nervous system, habits, focus, and decision making are synced. That rhythm is data, consistent data. Now, when pressure pulls you into group routines you didn't choose, environments that don't support your goals, emotional states you didn't initiate, excessive idle time without intention, you're not just taking a break, you're changing the inputs. And since life works on input output, the system doesn't care why the input.
All right, let's say that again, Brittany. Come on, let's go.
Let's tighten and ground that so it lands clean and empowering, not heavy or fear-based. What you're pointing to here is momentum interruption, not rest in a healthy sense. And that distinction matters. Here's the clean breakdown you can give the chat. What's happening during the holidays for a lot of people isn't recovery. It's a forced pause in conscious creation. When you're building something, mentally, financially, spiritually, physically, you're in a rhythm. Your nervous system, habits, focus, and decision making are synced. That rhythm is data, consistent data. Now, when pressure pulls you into group routines you didn't choose, environments that don't support your goals, emotional states you didn't initiate, excessive idle time without intention, you're not just taking a break, you're changing the inputs. And since life works on input output, the system doesn't care why the input changed. It just responds. That's the part most people miss. Why a few days matter more than people think. A lot of people say, open quote, it's just 3 or 4 days, close quote. But those days often include disrupted sleep, disrupted diet, disrupted focus, emotional noise, lowered standards, postponed action. That's enough to break momentum, and momentum is harder to rebuild than people realize. Not because you're weak, but because habits are momentum-based systems. The group effect. When you group up under pressure, you're not only pausing your own program, you're syncing to someone else's. Most people around you during this time are not in build mode. They're in maintenance mode, distraction mode, nostalgia mode, survival mode. So even if no one says anything, the collective signal pulls you off center. That's not spiritual, that's neurological and behavioral. Conscious reframe. This is important. This isn't about never resting, isolating, grinding through everything. It's about intentional pauses versus unconscious interruptions. A conscious being asks, open quote, is this rest aligned or is this avoidance dressed up as tradition? Close quote. That question alone keeps you sovereign. Key line for the chat. You can drop this and let it breathe. Open quote, rest that's chosen restores you. Pauses that are pressured reset you. Close quote. Practical guidance keeps it healthy. Tell them you don't have to abandon your build to enjoy a holiday. You don't have to disappear from your rhythm to be present. Even 30 to 60 minutes a day of alignment keeps the program running. That's how conscious people move through high pressure seasons without losing themselves. You're not telling people to be rigid. You're teaching them to be aware of momentum. That's leadership. Whenever you're ready, we can move into emotional script loops, identity reversion, or how to stay in build mode without burning out.
All right, so chat, before we got clipped off, man, I don't know what happened. That's been going on lately. I don't know, but we here, man. It doesn't matter at this point. So chat, what you got to realize is, or what you got to look forward to, you know, paying attention to scripted behavior. Let's look into key signs of scripted behavior. Because what I want you to do, I want you to be able to sit back and observe the holidays from a perspective of where you can know who is who. All right, where you could know the NPCs you're dealing with. So we just kind of talked about emotional automation, right? And look for these signs: forced happiness, sudden stress spikes, irritability, guilt-driven joy, all of this type of shit, right? The holidays comes with, and a lot of time we've been around this type of behavior in holidays. We just didn't understand it, right? But this is all programming. Let's talk about the most important one: the financial self-betrayal. This is a big one, right? Because so many people start their New Year's off fucked up and have to grind all that momentum over and over again. And so it keeps you in a loop, right? You save up that money, you grind that money, and the next thing you know, Christmas comes and you got to go out your way to get gifts because you want to prove that you're successful. You got so much stuff you want to prove. Let's talk about the financial self-betrayal and how to look at signs of this as script running when you're dealing or, trying to talk about NPCs. Let's see what Brittany says about this. Yo, I don't know what the fuck goddamn YouTube got going on, man. Stop clipping my shit. All right, so let's keep going, yo. Let's get Brittany in here. There's a lot of energy into this shit. Boy, y'all clipping my, you know what I'm saying? Like, y'all, I'm putting it'd be a lot of energy coming up with this shit. A lot of consciousness energy. That's why, I can drop this shit.
Let's lock in on this one because financial self-betrayal is one of the clearest tells of script running during the holidays.
All right, guys. Financial self-betrayal is one of the most ways you can tell a motherfucker is an NPC. People out here that's busting their ass to go get gifts and all that crazy shit, spending money, fucking up loops, Not being able to pay you your money because they out here spending money fucking up shit. Know what I'm saying? This is a sign you know you dealing with an NPC motherfucker. Financial self-betrayal. Real shit. Let's get into that.
Let's lock in on this one because financial self-betrayal is one of the clearest tells of script running during the holidays.
This is one of the clearest tells. Let's pay attention, chat.
I'm going to break this down so the chat can recognize it in real time without shame, without judgment, just awareness. Financial self-betrayal, how the script runs. What you're observing here isn't generosity. It's identity pressure expressed through money. The holiday script quietly tells people, open quote, your value needs to be proven and money is the proof, close quote. Once that belief is active, logic shuts off. Key signs you're watching a...
Bro, y'all hearing this shit? This shit is really literally reprogramming me as I listen to it. All right? The holiday script quietly tells you your value needs to be proven, and money is the proof. Once that belief is active, logic shuts off. You cannot access logic no more. It is very important that you do not allow the avatar to get into that state of thinking that money is value or money proves. All right, now this information is literally glitching this shit. Pay attention, chat. Let's go over it again.
Let's lock in on this one because financial self-betrayal is one of the clearest tells of script running during the holidays. I'm going to break this down so the chat can recognize it in real time without shame, without judgment, just awareness. Financial self-betrayal, how the script runs. What you're observing here isn't generosity. It's identity pressure expressed through money. The holiday script quietly tells people, open quote, your value needs to be proven and money is the proof, close quote. Once that belief is active, logic shuts off. Key signs you're watching a script run. 1. Spending that conflicts with their reality. You'll notice people buying things they can't comfortably afford, even when their income hasn't changed, their bills are already tight, their goals require restraint. That's not choice, that's override. A conscious quietly tells people, open quote, your value needs to be proven and money is the proof, close quote. Once that belief is active, logic shuts off. Key signs you're watching a script run. 1. Spending that conflicts with their reality. You'll notice people buying things they can't comfortably afford, even when their income hasn't changed, their bills are already tight, their goals require restraint. That's not choice, that's override. A conscious being feels alignment before spending. A scripted being feels urgency. 2, I'll figure it out later. Language. Listen for phrases like, I'll make it back, it's only once a year, I'll just grind harder after. That's the loop talking. The system doesn't care about intentions. It responds to current inputs. Future promises don't cancel present consequences. 3, proving success instead of living it. This one is huge. People aren't buying gifts. They're buying validation. They want to show they're doing well. They didn't fall behind. They're not struggling. So money becomes a performance, not a tool. A conscious observer notices, open quote, why does my worth feel tied to what I give? Close quote. 4, guilt-driven spending. You'll see people spend because they feel absent, they feel judged, they feel they owe something emotionally. That's not generosity, it's emotional debt payment. When guilt drives money, resentment follows later. 5, ignoring long-term consequences. This is where the betrayal happens. Savings touched, emergency funds dipped into, goals delayed, all for one day. Then January hits and suddenly motivation drops, stress rises, urgency returns, and the loop resets. Why this keeps people in the loop. Here's the key insight for the chat. When someone sacrifices their future self to satisfy a present script, they guarantee they'll be in the same position next year. That's how the loop sustains itself, not because the system is evil, but because awareness was offline during the decision. How a conscious being observes this.
Chat, you understand what these holidays doing now? You understand what these holidays are doing? These holidays are resetting you, helping you stay in these same loops. You skip these motherfuckers, man. But also pay attention to the ones around you. All right? Pay attention to the people around you. People spending money they know they ain't got right now to prove something to niggas that don't give a fuck about them. All because it's a holiday. I wish I would give a bitch anything. I'm just saying. Because it's Christmas, I take care of motherfuckers every day. So, you know, you got to pay attention to that, bro. That's NPC behavior, chat. Keep going, Britt.
Without getting pulled in. This is important. You don't shame people.
Right.
You don't correct them. You don't argue. You just notice the pattern. Internally, you ask, open quote, is this purchase aligned or is it pressure? Close quote. That question alone keeps you out of the script.
How you get out of the script?
You don't shame people. That's how the loop sustains itself, not because the system is evil, but because awareness was offline during the decision. How a conscious being observes this without getting pulled in. This is important. You don't shame people. You don't correct them. You don't argue. You just notice the pattern. Internally, you ask, open quote, is this purchase aligned or is it pressure? Close quote. That question alone keeps you out of the script. Anchor line you can drop. Let this sit with the chat. Open quote. If money moves out of pressure, it always comes back as stress. Clean reframes.
If money moves out as pressure, it always comes back as stress. Wow. Wow. Think about that, chat. If you are pressured into spending some shit, it's going to come back as stress.
Yeah, let's lock in on this. Something emotional and sacrifices their future selves. That question alone keeps you out of the script. Anchor line you can drop. Let this sit with the chat. Open quote. If money moves out of pressure, it always comes back as stress. Close quote. Clean reframe. So this isn't fear-based. This isn't saying don't give, don't celebrate, don't enjoy yourself. It's saying, open quote, don't betray your future self to satisfy a program you didn't choose. Close quote. Conscious giving feels calm.
Don't betray your future self, man. See, you got to understand how we're navigating, right? You're trying to get to the best version of you. The best version of you ain't spend all they goddamn money for Christmas, ain't spend all their savings. They going into the new year with something. That's how you get to them. Don't betray your future self for the programming, chat.
Scripted spending feels urgent. Once you see that difference, you can't unsee it. If you want next, we can move into NPC conversation scripts around money, why January is the system's reset point, or how to give without breaking your momentum. You're leading this.
Let's talk about that. Let's talk about January, right? Let's talk about why it's important to make it to January doing your loop, right? Not shying away from your loop, actively completing your loop. What does that solidify when we cross that January 1st portal? What is that about? Chat, what's going on, chat? Hey, we're gonna knock this out right here, right? And then I'm gonna take a break and
Yeah,
then we'll come
this
back.
is a powerful point, and I'm going to break it down in a way that keeps it grounded, clean, and usable for the chat. Let's talk about January and why crossing into it while still in your loop matters so much. Why January matters from a conscious perspective. January isn't magic. It's psychological, behavioral, and neurological. But because so many people collectively agree that January is a reset point, it becomes a high leverage moment in the system. Think of it like this. Open quote. January is when the system audits momentum. Close quote. Not spiritually, functionally. What your loop actually is. When you say your loop, what you're really talking about is habits, routines, standards, identity consistent behavior, momentum. Your loop is who you're being on a daily basis, not what you plan to become. So when you maintain your loop through the holidays, you're telling the system, open quote, this is my baseline. This is who I am, even under pressure. What happens when people break their loop before January? Most people pause discipline, loosen standards, stop tracking themselves, tell themselves, I'll restart in January. That does two things. One, it trains the brain that pressure is permission to disengage. Two, it re-anchors their identity to restart mode instead of continuation mode. So when January hits, they're not building, they're recovering. That's why January feels heavy for most people. What it solidifies when you cross January 1st, still locked in. Now, here's the difference. If you cross into January still doing your loop, even at a reduced, sustainable level, a few things happen. One, identity locks in. You don't feel like you're starting over. You feel like you're continuing. That's huge. The mind follows identity faster than motivation. Two, momentum carries forward. Momentum doesn't reset on January 1st, it compounds. So instead of open quote, I need to get back on track, close quote, you experience open quote, I'm already moving. That alone separates you from most people. #3, January becomes expansion, not repair. For most people, January is damage control, fixing finances, fixing habits, fixing weight, fixing motivation. For a conscious being who stayed in their loop, January becomes refinement, optimization, expansion, same calendar, different reality. The January portal explained cleanly. You can frame it like this for the chat. January isn't a portal that gives you power. It's a mirror. It reflects who stayed conscious under pressure, who defaulted to the script, who maintained standards, who postponed responsibility. The system doesn't judge, it just reflects consistency. Why the holidays try to pull you out of the loop? Because if momentum carries through January, the loop breaks. People who stay consistent don't need motivation cycles, don't respond as easily to pressure, don't rely on collective resets. They become self-directed, and self-directed people are harder to program. Anchor line you can drop on stream. This one will land. Open quote. January doesn't change people. It reveals who stayed consistent when nobody was watching. Close quote. Healthy.
All right, chat. Yo, I'm out of here, chat. Ain't gonna cap. I'll be back in a little bit.